Good morning, boys and girls. It's Little Red Riding Hood, and I've been to Grandma's house again, and she said, don't forget to remind everybody to register for summer reading at www.mccpl.lib.al.us. And if you have trouble, call 334-625-4844. And the lovely ladies and gentlemen of Eolata Regional Library will be more than happy to assist. I'm here with my basket. I gave my goodies, and Grandma's starting to feel better, but I won't have to go visit her in a little while. But I have my book, and it's called Pay Attention, Carter Jones. It's by Gary D. Schmidt, and we're gonna read. We've read chapter 1 and 2. We met the Butler, and we met Carter Jones and his 3 sisters and mother, and we left where everybody was being dropped off at school, and everybody's mom and Carter Jones are kind of, and Billy Colt, they're all suspicious of the Butler and the big eggplant-looking vehicle, that purple eggplant that they were dropped off on. And chapter 3 is called The Boundary. Let's get started. The perimeter of the field is generally lined in white chalk, setting the limits of play within this boundary. Okay, so a lot of the first day of 6th grade was pretty much what I expected. All the halls had new bulletin boards displayed that said, "Welcome back, Minutemen." And once we all got into our homerooms, the loudspeaker came on, and the vice principal, Del Blanco, welcomed everyone to school like it was the best thing in the whole world. And wasn't everyone glad to be back at Longfellow Middle School? And let's all give a Longfellow Middle School welcome to all the new 6th graders, because remember, 7th and 8th graders, you were once new 6th graders too. The principal, Sedgwick, came on, and she said she hoped we all would have a wonderful year, and that she was eager to see all of us in our new classes, but she hoped she wouldn't see any of us in her office this year. That was supposed to be a principal's joke. Classes weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. I got Mr. Barkus for math skills, and he showed us how he could memorize everyone's name, nickname, and street address after hearing them only once. Wow, that's amazing. I got Mrs. Harnick for homeroom, and she looked like she'd been okay, mostly because she had filled her classroom with more paperbacks than are in most libraries. The gym had that new gym smell, and it was all ready for that first squeak across the glowing floor, even though Coach Krozik was patrolling the edges, making sure no 6th grader was stepping onto his floor wearing anything but sneakers. Sneakers is another word for tennis shoes. In the cafeteria, the lunch ladies had loaded strawberry milk into coolers, which I'd never had before, but it seemed like a pretty good idea. In the science hall, Mrs. Werbel had arranged glass speakers next to the Bunsen burners, so the classroom looked like Frankenstein's lab. And she told us we could try anything as long as we checked with her to make sure it wouldn't explode. Mr. Solaska told us we were now done with elementary school, and he took education seriously, and so should we? So he stared right in teaching the Boston Tea Party. How many of you have heard of the Boston Tea Party? Like it wasn't going to spend a minute not talking about American history. And I had Mrs. Harnick for language arts too, and she handed out textbooks that got printed like yesterday, so the pages were still stuck together, but they looked all right, even though they had poetry between the good parts. So pretty much what I expected, like shedding summer all day. But there was one thing I hadn't expected. Stupid Billy Colt told everyone about the Butler. Everyone in 6th grade, all day long, it was, "You have a Butler? Really? And they still make Butlers? And is your Butler going to carry your books to school? And does your Butler open your door for you, like bow all the time? And so does your Butler tuck you in at night? The last one was from stupid Billy Colt, who almost got a face full of fist until I remembered who I was and made a good decision. It helped that Vice Principal Del Blanco was standing right there. But when school was finally over and I was about to leave, and it was still raining an Australian tropical thunderstorm, I looked out the sixth grade door and saw a whole crowd of sixth graders standing where the kids who get picked up stand, looking at something big and purple. Even kids who take the bus were standing there. So I walked over to the elementary building, fifth grade door, and I got Annie, and we went around to the fourth grade door and got Charlie. And then we went to the second grade door and found Emily, and we stood there like giants around the second graders until the butler came to pick us up. My mother was in the front seat again. We all squeezed in the back. "How was your first day?" she said. "I thought you were going to pick us up in the Jeep," I said. "It's still in the shop," she said. "I hope it won't be in the shop tomorrow." "Young Mr. Jones." "Carter? My name is Carter." "That's Carter." "So you did remember. Most gratifying, young Master Jones. What you mean to say to your mother is, and how was your day?" "What I mean to say is, because your mother has had a very long one, punctuated with unfortunate mechanical news of all stripes. If you'll pardon my interruption of your interruption." "The Jeep?" I said. "The Jeep is on its last legs." My mother said. "Are you sure?" The butler looked over at me. The mechanic's clinical description of the situation was, "Lady, you can stick a fork in this one and call it done." "So what are we going to do now?" "Carter," my mother said, "let's just get home." "Is the Jeep dead?" said Emily in that voice that tells you she's about to cry. "Don't be a baby," I said. "I'm not a baby," she said. "Carter," said my mother with that look. So we drove home in the eggplant with the windshield wipers thumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The only sound in that stupid purple car. When we got back home, Ned was waiting for us, and he got pretty excited again and started bouncing around on his short legs and barking his high, "Where have you been?" bark until he threw up. I figured this was a good time to take my backpack upstairs, but the butler didn't think so. "Young Master Jones," he said, and pointed. "Aren't you supposed to do stuff like that?" I said. "On the occasion of an emergency, had I been hired as your scullery maid, apparently with regularity, but I am not a scullery maid." He handed me a roll of paper towels and a plastic bag. "Usually my mother." "Neither is your mother a scullery maid," said the butler. "So I am?" "For such time as this," said the butler. I took the roll of paper towels and the plastic bag. I knelt down. It was disgusting. When I finished, the butler handed me Ned's leash. "It's raining," I said. The butler went to the mudroom, brought back the satellite dish umbrella, and handed it to me. "I usually don't take Ned for walks right after school," I said. "I sort of like to crash." A habit confirmed by Ned's protruding belly. Isn't it fortunate that habits may be changed with discipline? "Mom," I said. "Only around the block," she said. "Around the block?" I said. "I'll be sopping wet when I get back." Annie started to laugh. "By which time Miss Ann will be well into her piano practice," said the butler. "I'm not taking piano lessons anymore," she said. "A loss that you and I shall amend." Annie no longer laughing. "This isn't fair," I said. "An irrelevancy," said the butler. "What does that mean?" "It means that the claim of fairness is the consistent, if unsystematic, whine of one who lives in a republic. A monarchist such as myself recognizes the virtue of simply getting to the thing that must be done. So to it, young Master Jones. I took Ned out. The Australian tropical thunderstorm, which had thundered and stormed on and off all day, waited until we got out of the door to start coming down sideways again. I didn't even try to use the satellite dish umbrella. I figured that Ned would want to go back inside right away, so we'd only be out for a minute. But he didn't want to go back inside. He loved it. He ran through puddles up to his belly and let his ears blow straight behind him, and kept his eyes mostly closed and his nose pointed up. And he watered the azaleas in front of the Ketchum's house, and the rhododendrons in front of the Brigger's house, and the holly hedge in front of the Rockcastle's house, and the petunias in front of the Corrito's house. And then he pooped next to Billy Colt's driveway, which I figured stupid Billy Colt deserved for blabbing about the Butler. And then he went again in the daylilies on the other side of Billy Colt's driveway. And then he headed back, since we were both starting to shiver. And Ed couldn't have had anything left anyway after all he done. And when we got home, the kitchen was warm as anything. There was a rag rug on the floor for Ned and a fluffy towel waiting for me. And the butler told me to go upstairs and put on dry clothes, and then come right down. So I did, and when I came back into the kitchen, there were hot chocolate chip cookies and a mug of something steaming. "What's this?" I said. "Tea with milk and sugar," said the butler. "I don't drink tea," I said. "All civilized people drink tea, young Master Jones." "Then I guess I'm not civilized." "A claim you share with the Vikings, Huns, assorted barbarian hordes, and Madrids of all stripes. I have taken the liberty of adding more sugar than one might normally expect." I sipped it. I sipped it again. It was pretty good. "It stinks," I said. The butler sighed. "There is no need to announce repeatedly how very American you are. You know, I think I might know something about this, since I can remember who I am. But tell me if I'm wrong," I said. "We are American, right? I mean, I'm supposed to be American, right?" The butler sighed again. "I think, young Master Jones, we will need to come to an understanding." You bet, I thought. And that's the end of chapter 3. So tomorrow we will read chapter 4, The Turn of the Blind. So the butler has come into the house. We first met him at 7:15 a.m. in the morning. Who comes to your house at 7:15 in the morning when you're getting ready for school? And he bought him milk and yellow socks. And chapter 2, he took everybody to school and told them to remember who they were and to basically have a good day. And then in chapter 3, he brought them home and he's getting them all disciplined. He's got little Emily doing piano lessons, and he has Carter Jones walking the dog around the block. So things can change and you can get on a schedule. Let's find out what happens in chapter 4 on the blind tomorrow. I'm bookmarking mine. And that was Pay Attention, Carter Jones by Gary D. Schmidt. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't signed up for Storytime, remember, Grandma said you can sign up at www.mccpl.lib.al.us or give the Eolata Regional Librarians a call at 334-625-4844. I hope you enjoyed the story, and I'm ready for chapter 4. Have a great day, guys.